All right, good morning. Today is going to be the first section on the drill press. And as you can see behind me is one of the three drill presses that I have in the facilities. And drill press is primarily used for drilling and boring holes. They do have attachments where I've seen where people made kind of a lathe type attachment where they put stuff on there where they can turn things on it, like on a lathe. But they don't normally do that. They usually use a lathe for that. Other things, we use hole saws on this. We have multiple different types of bits and things we can do. We can even do polishing on it if it's got a round shaft that we can put something in and we can polish whatever we're working on to make it nice and smooth and all that stuff. So drill press is a pretty versatile machine. So I'm going to share my screen here and we're going to put the other camera on. It tends to come in a little bit better. And I need for you to tell me whether or not you can still hear my voice. Are you able to hear my voice, folks?
Yes.
All right, very good. Okay. So behind me, or this is the drill press. And there are many parts of this machine. And so first thing I'm going to do is I am going to go over the parts of the machine. So first, back here is the motor. And I know it's kind of hard to see my face, but you can barely see it back here. This little black box here, I think this is the starter motor for this. And the motor goes up here and it's got a pulley that runs right across the top of the back of the pulley cover, which is this black metal piece here. So there's a pulley here, an inverted pulley, and then there's another pulley right up here, and that one is also inverted. Okay, and it's actually the other way. So we got a cone that's going this way, and then the other one where it's going this way. And right here, this crank right here, this is the variable speed control. And the job of the variable speed control wheel is to actually change the speed. And you can do that on this machine. And in a bit, you'll see. But we only crank the variable speed control wheel when the machine is on. If you take this machine and crank this now while it's not running, you stretch out the belt and you risk breaking the belt. And then I have a drill press that's down because now I got to go down into Auburn and I got to go find a belt if I can find a belt. And I got to get that. I got to take everything off and I got to put it back together. Right here is the speed indicator. This will light up when it's on. Okay. Right here, this is the column. That's this big pole that goes all the way down. We call it the column or the post. And it goes all the way down to the floor. And if you look down on the floor, you can see the base. That's this right down here. And this is bolted to the floor. And the base, so if we ever have an earthquake or anything, because these can be a little bit top heavy. So we have that bolted to the floor. And it's a safety issue, safety thing. Okay. We have the table, which is, pan down just a little bit. We have the table, which is right here. Okay. Please do not drill holes in my tables. Okay. You drill holes in my tables, I'm going to send you a bill. It's about $300 to replace this table. And I would greatly appreciate it if you didn't do that. We want to keep these for as long as we possibly can. I think this machine alone was $5,000. And compared to the other machines that I had originally in here, and they weren't quite as nice, this is a quality machine. This thing's got some torque like you wouldn't believe. Okay, this is the spindle right here. This section right in here, this is the chuck. And the chuck is what holds onto the bit. Okay, so this is the chuck right here. And this is a bit, this is the hole saw that we have in here, but we're not going to start out with this. We're going to start out with the other bit for the bit. But, so, you just saw me use this tool right here. This is called a chuck key, and this is a chuck. And we never, ever, ever leave the chuck key in the chuck. Because if we leave the chuck key in the chuck and we turn on the drill press, then what happens is this chuck key flies out. It magically, I don't know why it does, but it's got this homing beacon in it, and it looks for your teeth, and it goes whack and knocks your teeth out. Okay? And I want you to have your front teeth. If you lose your front teeth because of this thing flying out at you, you will not be able to say teeth. You'll have to say toofs, and that's going to suck. I don't want you to have to say toofs. And you're going to get a hard time getting a date with somebody if you're missing your front toofs. So, please do not leave the chuck key in the chuck. Always remove the chuck key when you're done using it. The chuck has these 3 jaws that come down. And let me zoom in on that so you can see it. There you go. Okay, these are the jaws of the chuck. This is what's coming down and grabbing the drill bit. Okay? And notice that I'm spinning it with my hands. And notice how quickly it goes up when I'm spinning it with my hands. Okay? You can always tell a noob when they're using the drill press for the first time because they sit there and they put the chuck key in and they do this. And it takes forever to bring the jaws of the chuck up. And it's super slow. So all you got to do is quickly spin it with your hand. Clockwise brings it up. Counterclockwise brings it down. Okay? And then when you get it where you need it, then you use the chuck key and you tighten all 3 holes. I got a hole here. I got a hole here. And I got a hole here. And you tighten each 3 down. That way you get nice even pressure all the way around. All right. More parts of the drill press. Okay, when I lower this down right here, this section right here that's moving up and down, this is the quill, okay? And that forces everything down when you hit the feed lever, which is right here. And you can't really see it, but I'll zoom in on it a little bit later. There is a threaded rod right here with 2 nuts on it, and you turn those nuts against you. This is called the depth stop. And the 2 nuts, we call them jam nuts. You twist them against each other, and it locks the depth stop in place so it doesn't move. If you do not, and you leave these loose, this thing will vibrate, and it'll keep going down and down and down. And then if you were supposed to drill a specific depth of hole, you're going to end up having either to fill that hole or you might have ruined your project. All right, there are other things here. So one, we've got the table here. The tilt. This is the table, and right here is the table locking lever. So if I want to hold it in one spot so it won't move, it snugs it down. But if I want to crank it up or raise the table up, which sometimes we have to do, and you know, I don't normally crank this out of the way, but here's the table crank here, and you can see that I raise it up and down. Okay, and so it gives me all sorts of options. Even if I had to drill something really, really long on the end, I can swing this table out of the way, and I can use the base as a support, and I can drill down there also. So kind of a neat tool. All right, so I'm going to rotate that back around. All right, so when you think of drill bits, this, my brothers and sisters, is what you usually think of, okay? It's one of these. Holy cow, Dufresne, that thing's huge. Yeah. This is actually, this drill bit is 1 in 13/32. This is a huge drill bit, okay? This drill bit probably is in the price of anywhere from $150 to $200, which is a lot of money. But what's significant about this drill bit is down here on the end. This has what's called a Morse taper. And this chuck here, you can see this little shaft right in here. It's hard to see. There's a Morse taper in there. And then in the spindle, has got a Morse taper, but this has got a number 1 Morse taper. I believe this is a number 2 Morse taper. And this is usually designed to go into the tailstock on a lathe. And then you put your material in the lathe and that section spins around, and then you lock the tailstock in, and then you just push this into it. This isn't actually spinning in the lathe. This is in the tailstock. What's spinning is your material on the headstock of the lathe. Okay, but normally our drill bits are not that big. Okay, like here's another one here. Okay, here's the same type of bit, and you can see how much bigger this one is. This one I think is probably close to a 1/2 inch in diameter. Okay, so when you think of drill bits, but generally this is what everybody thinks of. Oh, it's a drill bit. Yeah, okay. Well, let me talk to you about the parts of the drill bit. So these spirally things right here, these are called the flutes. And some people used to think that these are what was doing the cutting. The flutes aren't what's doing the cutting. What's actually doing, what the flutes do is they actually lift the chips out and away from where you're drilling. Now, on occasion, the flutes get packed. And depending on how fast you spin the drill press, can pack that up really good. And then what happens is you start burning the material, and that's not what you want. That's not good. Okay, what's actually doing the cutting is the cutter head, which is right here and right here. Oops, right here and here. Sorry. And so this thing spins this way like this. And that is cutting the material, and it's lifting it up in a way, and it pulls your chips up and out. So this section right here is called the shank. Okay. Now, as you can see, this has got a taper to it, so it's fatter here and it gets skinnier as you get up here. But when you look at our other drill bits, the shank is it's a uniform length all the way up. Now, you usually can read on drill bits somewhere in the shank on what's the diameter of it. Now, as you can see on this bit here, you can see all the little striations on there. So what happened is that somebody installed the cutter and they didn't install it tight enough in there. And so it spun on the chuck, okay? And it ends up ruining the drill bit. So you gotta be really careful. You gotta make sure you tighten all 3 sides of the chuck up. 3 holes, 3 sides, okay? So, all right, let's see. When I was in college, there was a young man in my class, and the professor always told us, he says, okay, you guys and gals, everybody comes to class on time. For a week, I'm going to give you extra credit. And of course, there's always that one guy that's got to show up late. But everybody has to be on time to get that extra credit. Our class never got that extra credit because this one guy. And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about turning a group of people against somebody. Professor had us going because we would sit there and we'd see him walk in, and you could see everybody in the class just go. And this is part of what I'm about to tell you is why I want you to get to class on time, okay? Because this guy came in late and he missed the instruction. And as you know from me, as I've always told you, I front load my lessons at the beginning of the class, okay? So that you know what to do, and then you can go out and do your assignment. Well, this guy wouldn't pay attention. He never came to class on time. And so the professor handed out an assignment to us, and he says, okay, this is what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a piece of sheet metal, okay, which is really thin metal. And he said, I want you to go over to the drill press, and I want you to clamp down the material. But listen to me what I'm about to tell you. I want you to follow the directions that are on the sheet, on the instruction sheet. Make sure you follow those instructions. Do not deviate. Do not go jump around. Do not skip over to something else. Well, this guy came in late after he heard the professor. He grabbed the sheet and went to go to work. And so the first thing it says, I want you to go over to the drill press. I want you to measure from a corner in. I want you to measure so far in at this point and this far in at that point. Find the intersection point, and I want you to drill a hole with a 1/2-inch drill bit. Then I want you to go over to the sheet metal brake, and I want you to bend a corner up on a piece of sheet metal. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your corner of your sheet metal. You're going to measure in 1 inch one way from one corner, and then on the other side, you're going to measure another inch. And then you're going to draw a line across there. And then I want you to take and go over to the sheet metal brake. And you guys don't know what a sheet metal brake is. I have one in the shop, and I'll show you that when the time comes. But I want you to then bend that sheet metal up at a 90-degree angle. So you're looking at the piece of sheet metal. Let's pretend my piece of paper here is the sheet metal. And what the professor wanted me to do was he wanted me to bend up a corner of my sheet metal like so at a 90-degree angle. Okay, so back to the guy that always came late to class. And he thought he saw this great big line of everybody behind the drill press. And we all understood why he wanted us to do this, because he wanted us to be able to clamp it down safely. And the guy says, you know what? I'm going to jump the line. I'm going to get this done, and then I'll go back and drill that hole. So he went and bent his piece of sheet metal corner up like this. And he went over to the drill press, and he proceeded to, one, not clamp down your material. And he went over to the drill press, and he was going to drill his hole. Well, that piece of sheet metal spun around and went, and it shot through his thumb all the way to the bone. And I saw it, and I'm like going, whoa. Of course, he does the fight or flight thing, and he's like, and he goes and he hides. Well, I go chase him down, and I'm like going, are you all right? And he's kind of got this deer in the headlights look in his eye, and I'm like, I know he's not. I'm like, hey, you better get up there, and we better go tell the professor, because it ain't going to be good if it comes from me. Of course, the professor comes out and says, my brothers and sisters, one of your fellow brothers got hurt. Shop shut down, go home. We're all like, I mean, I knew that was coming. But you got to be really careful. And this is why I want you in class on time, because it's things like that can get you hurt really bad. Okay. All right. So always, always, always clamp your material down. Do not attempt to hold it with your hand. I know that some of you have probably used a portable electric drill, the battery powered drills, and you probably were drilling a hole in something and you weren't really holding the material down firm enough, and it caught on the bit and it started spinning around on the drill. Well, of course, you take your finger off the button and all that stuff, and then you it'll stop running, and then you got to reclamp it down and then start it again to pull the bit out and all that stuff. So yeah, very, very, the drill press can be a very, very deceptive machine. So looking at this here behind me, when the shop is running, if it was just quiet in here, because whenever we're operating things in the shop, I usually have a vacuum system comes on, and it gets pretty noisy in here. And so bandsaws are sucking up stuff. I got my planer will suck up stuff. It'll kick the vacuum on. And if I turn this on, yes, you can hear that it's on, but when the shop is running and noisy, you might not necessarily know. That thing right now is spinning at 1,218 revolutions a minute. Okay, I told you you can crank this thing up. That thing is now spinning 5,200 revolutions a minute. That's about as fast as your car motor is running at red line. Okay, there is no reason for us to be operating this thing that fast. We usually want to keep it just around 1,200 revolutions a minute. And if you look up here, you can see my light up there, and it's telling me how fast I'm going. I can get this thing down to just over, a little over 400 revolutions a minute, where we're doing like 435, 436. But like I said, that's for like when we're drilling like metal and stuff like that. You don't wanna be spinning fast, okay? Especially when you're drilling metal, because you'll just ruin the bit. You'll heat it up, take the temper out of the bit won't do any cutting for you. So, but for most of the woodworking work that we do, we like it at about 1,100 to 1,200 revolutions a minute. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Now, if you don't know that thing's running, yeah, you really couldn't see it. Okay. So you got to make sure you turn the thing off. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, on and off switch is right here. All right. So, things you got to be careful of. Okay. Long hair. Okay. You got long hair that comes past your chin, you got to have it tied back. Okay. Because I don't want you hurt. Okay. Necklaces, you need to put those away. Bandanas around my neck. That's not a good thing. Better take that sucker off, put it away. Okay. If you have long hair, you can use it to tie your hair back with. Okay. You can use it as to tie it back in a bow, or you can put the whole thing on. That's a good thing. You also, if it's, you can use rubber bands, you can use scrunchies, you can use string, and all that stuff. One thing I do not want you to do, and I know that I'm doing it, but I need to be wireless right now, is headphones should not be on, and you got these lines here that can get caught in there. That can pull you into it. Okay. Your sweatshirts, you have your hoodies. They got the little deal bobbers that come out that you tie to keep the wind out of your head, to keep your ears nice, warm, and toasty. Those things are really dangerous. Okay. That can pull you into it, and it can pull you into the chuck as it's spinning, and that's gonna hurt. Okay, it's gonna hurt real bad. You also necklaces are really bad. Wu-Tang Clan medallions. I've got one in the back. I always, whenever I do the demo, usually when everybody's there, I put it on. And I'm like, oh yeah, you want to tuck this in. So you can take your necklaces and you can tuck them in. You can take your little hoodie strings. You can tuck your hoodie strings in, and that's a good thing, and that's safe. Okay, because I don't want you to get pulled into this machine. If this machine grabs your hair, it will pull the flesh out where this hair goes into your head. It'll pull a chunk out, and then you're gonna have a bald spot. And I don't want you to be like me, because I'm getting kind of bald back here. I don't want that to be you. Okay, genetics has not been kind to me on that front. All right, so installing the cutter. Okay, so I am going to over exaggerate something, and I want you to pay attention. Okay, so again, here's my cutter. This is a let's see, it says high speed steel HS. Oh, this is a 1/4 inch drill bit. Okay, it's really hard to see and you can't say it, but it says it right here on the shank. Okay, so when you install the cutter, there's several things you got to make sure. One, so if my fingers, so I've got my index, my middle finger, and my thumb are part of it. Let me get over here so it's a little easier. Okay, my 3 fingers here, and you want to make sure that you are not clamping between 2 jaws of the chuck. You can see here, it's not biting it. So it needs to be all three equally putting pressure down on it. Notice that I'm not clamping on the flutes. If you clamp on the flutes, what happens is you end up breaking the bit. You end up chipping it up in here, and then what happens is it breaks, and then it's no good for anybody, okay? So you always want to stay on the smooth portion of the bit, and that is called the shank. So we got the shank right here, we got the flutes, and then the cutters are on the end, okay? All right, so I am going to install this bit. Remember, I don't want you to sit here and do this. See how long that takes? Good Lord, that takes forever. Spin that thing. Okay, install the bit. You wiggle it as you're installing it. Okay, and I'm going to do something on purpose, and you're probably seeing it. You tighten all three. 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm on the smooth portion of the shank, and now I'm going to zoom in. And you probably can already see it if you've ever used a drill press before. You probably already recognize what I've done. Turn the drill press on. Holy cow, look at that thing wobbling all over the place. You don't want to use it like that, okay? You use that thing like that, 3 things are going to happen. 1, you're going to ruin your project, and you're really going to ruin it, okay? 2, you're going to break the drill bit. And 3, you're going to get hurt, or there's a good chance that you're going to get hurt, okay? So if you ever see it wobbling around like that, we need to install the cutter correctly. So do not go. Do not proceed. You're going to get hurt. We don't want you to get hurt. All right. So a lot of times, what I do is I like to install this, and I like to hand tighten this, and then it stops wiggling, or it gets less of a wiggle. Okay, so let me do it again. Okay, wiggle. You won't be able to go after a while, and then hand tighten it. And notice that, and it's really hard to see. Pencil. Notice that it is on the smooth portion of the shank, and I'm not clamping on the flutes. That's the important thing. Okay. Okay. And I tighten all 3 holes. 1, 2, 3. Remove the chuck key. Now give it a test spin. Oh, look how nice that's spinning. That's spinning nice. It's not wobbling all over the place. It's nice and straight. Okay. All right. All righty. And as you can see here, I have a clamping block right here. Please don't drill into my clamping block. I know there's a little bit, you're going to have to do it a little bit here and there, but there's only 1 bit that we have to worry about that with it. But there's no reason for me to take this and drill into this. I always put a backing board. This is my backing board right here. This board is my sacrificial lamb. This is the board I drill into. It's there for a reason, okay? So that you don't drill into the clamping block. And here is my board, okay? And you can see that I've got several holes drilled in here and all that stuff. Now, when you drill, there are some tips and some things you want to do. You don't want to be aggressive. You're aggressive on the drill, you're going to ruin your project. You need to let this machine do the work. Don't force it. Let it do its job, okay? Okay, so first things first, I need to find my marker here. There's my marker. Okay. Oh, let's talk about where you clamp the board. Okay, this is the left or right side, and this is the left side of the machine. You probably can't tell, but the drill press is spinning clockwise. Okay, and you always want to clamp your material, the long end of your stock, on the left side of the table. So the longest portion goes to the left. Okay, the reason being is, again, if you've used a hand drill before, you probably noticed when the bit has gotten caught and all of a sudden the material starts spinning around and all that stuff, right? Well, that's dangerous, especially on a drill press here. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to clamp it to the long end of the stock's on the left, because if it does slip, it's going to go and it's going to hit the column back here, and that's what we want it to do. If you clamp the long end of the board on the right side and you proceed to drill your hole and it catches, it's going to go wink, and it's going to hit you in places you don't want to get hit. Gentlemen, we're going to start calling you Minnie Mouse, because you got hit in places you didn't want to get hit. And you're going to have a hard time getting a date with somebody if you sound like Minnie Mouse, and I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to go up and say, hey, how you doing? Okay? So, always clamp the long end of the stock on the left side, because if it catches, it's going to hit the column. It ain't going to go through the column. Okay? All right. So, this is getting a little chewed up here. So let's say, for instance, I want to drill a hole here, 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 and here. Those green marks right there. First thing I'm going to do is I am going to grab my scratch awl. You remember this? Remember this in the video? We don't spell it O-W-L, it's spelled A-W-L, scratch awl. Okay? And this is not a nail. Okay? This is not, hit it, show me how hard you can hit it in through the board. You don't want to do that because you're going to ruin your project. Okay? All this is you're going to take your material and you're going to take, and you don't need a hammer for this. Maybe if you had a piece of metal, you might need it, but you don't need it. You don't need to drive it through. You don't, so you just take it and you go, okay, this is pine. It's pretty soft. It doesn't take much. Okay? Okay, this is what you don't do. Watching? Here we go. Ow! If it hurts, you're doing it too hard. Okay, that one's good. That one's good. That ain't so good. Okay? It's kind of like that, you know, when you go to the doctor and you say, doctor, it hurts when I do this. You know, if I'm doing this all the time, doctor says to you, stop doing it then. Well, don't do it so hard. You don't need to do it. Okay? All right. So, now, we're going to set this up here, and I'm going to drill this hole and this hole. So I'm going to drill this hole and this hole all the way through the end of the board. These two here, these two other ones over here, I'm going to drill them so that is to, I'm going to set it up to that bottom line there. That's how deep I'm going to drill. Okay. So first things first, I come over here and I clamp on, what side do I clamp the long end of the stock on? Should be clamping it on the left side, right? Okay. Okay, so I've got the backing board. Okay, so 3 reasons why you use a backing board. Write this down. You need to know this. 1, protect the cutter. Protects this. 2, protects my table. And 3, it prevents splintering on the back side of the board, especially if you've got a backing board that's nice and smooth. The more worn out the backing board gets, the more chances of getting splintering on the back side. And if it gets so bad that it's no good anymore, you let me know and I'll get you another scrap piece of material and we'll stick it down there and we'll continue drilling with that. So, I am going to clamp this down here, and someone's got a question, I think. Come on, you turkey. Oh, okay. So third, let's see. So I got 1 is protect the cutter, 2 is protect the table, and 3 is to prevent splintering. And you don't know what splintering is yet. I'll show you what splintering is in a little bit. Okay. So yeah. All right. All right. So long end of the stock. And so I will also tell you this: if you end up missing a power tool demo, you're going to have to go online and go to Canvas, and I'm going to post the video up there, okay? Because it's awful hard for me. I can't tell when someone's trying to come in and all that stuff, so I just keep going. So that's part of the reason why I want you to get here on time. Okay, so these 2 holes right here, I'm going to drill first. Okay, so this is like a vice grip handle here, and so you got to make sure it's good and snug, and it clamps down. On occasion, you may need to come down on the back side here and tighten up. There's a big kind of ring nut on the bottom of there, and you can tighten that up too, so if it's really loose. Okay, and you want to make sure it's down nice and firm. And so now what I do is I'm going to set my depth stop. So now, let's make sure you can see the depth stop over here. All right. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I just cannot. There we go. Okay. Here is the depth stop. Okay. And these are the jam nuts right here. Okay. And so when that comes down and hits there, it stops. But you can see right here that it's the jam nuts. They're not tight against each other. And so when this thing is on, it'll vibrate, and then this will change, and your depth will change, and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, you can't go down anymore. So you got to make sure that you turn them against each other, and it locks them in place. And then you got to undo them. You know, sometimes you got to put a little oomph into it, get it to do. But once you get them both broken free, then you can raise this. So like I said, I'm going to drill. So I'm going to drill into my backing board. Let me make sure you can see that. Let me zoom back. Okay. Oops. See my screen still? Yeah, okay. You can still see my drill press. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this drills down and past into my backing board down here, okay? So I raise it up, and then I turn the top jam nut against the bottom jam nut, and so I can proceed forward. Okay. Okay. Ah, dang it. Turn this thing off. Okay. So I've set this up so I know that it breaks through the top board because I want to drill all the way through, but I'm not drilling into my clamping block down here. Turn this on. A lot of times I like to kind of get it lined up roughly where I want it first. Do not start the bit on the material. Turn it on. Hold your clamping block. Feed it in. Notice I take my time. Watch what I do next. I blow the material out of the way. Line up the next one. Okay, very good. Notice I wait for it to come to a complete stop before I put my my hands down there. I unclamp, and it does a pretty nice job of drilling holes. Look how nice and smooth it is on the other side. Okay, next I am going to drill to this line down here. So I'm going to set the depth stop for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to clamp. And now I need to make an adjustment. Okay, so hopefully you can see that I got the drill bit down to that line. I need to break away that top jam nut and lower the bottom one all the way down, and then lower the top jam nut on top of that. Lift it up, turn the two jam nuts against each other. That locks it in place, okay? And then come on back over, fire it up. Okay. And it's tempting. I want to stick my hand in there. Holy cow, it is just blowing out there. Wow. Okay. Now I can drill all day as long as these jam nuts don't move. If I want to drill a bunch of holes to that same depth, as long as I don't move those jam nuts, I can go all day. And they'll all be at the same depth as long as that hasn't moved. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to show you what not to do. Okay, because if you always get that guy that's gotta master the machine. I gotta have this. I don't want you to be like that, because what you end up doing is you end up ruining your project. So watch. I am going to set this up so that I drill all the way through this machine, through this board. So again, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to crank these up. Check to make sure. Yep, I'm going down into my backing board. Perfect. Okay, crank it up. Lock the two jam nuts in. All right. Make sure I'm being supported on this side here. Move this down just a little bit. Okay, here we go. You always get that guy that's got to prove to you how manly he is. Ooh. Okay, watch. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Oh. I'm a man. Oh. how cruddy those holes look. Okay, that is splintering. And not only did I get it on this side, I got it on this side. It's also known as tear out. Okay, that's bad news. That lowers your grade, folks. Okay, all righty. That is it for today on this. When you come back on Monday, or on Thursday, I will show you. Don't go anywhere yet, folks. I will show you the other drill bits. Okay?